Get ready to embrace debate. First Take starts now.
Good morning and welcome to First Take. I'm Kerry Chow. Kerry champion Stephen A. and Skip. We're all recovering from Dallas. A lot of barbecue, some of the itis, you know.
Really?
Yes, I don't know. I'm just
starting the show that way, are we?
Freddie, Coleman, Jorge, Sedano, guys, always a pleasure to be here.
Same here. Same here.
Happy belated New Year to you guys.
Yeah.
Yes, happy belated New Year.
There should be a cutoff at some point, though. I think
now.
That's it. The first time you see someone.
Why, just because it's like the
because I haven't
15th
seen you.
Right.
I haven't seen you guys. So
but
today.
I feel like what happens if you haven't seen someone until like June? Do you still Happy New Year?
No, at that point.
No, it's over.
It's over.
Just like, hey, what's up? Okay.
Viewers
Enjoy
are
your
thrilled
summer.
at this, by the way. They love this. This is what
We're already
they want more
debating.
of.
Absolutely.
All right, coming up, after missing 8 straight games, LeBron James finally made his 2015 debut and shoved his coach. And LeBron doesn't have arms like scrawny arms Rob Lowe. He does not. They're bigger than that. Big deal or no? And who's going to the Super Bowl? Ryan Clark will join us to break down the championship games. But first, is it time for a new sheriff in Denver? In the AFC divisional game against Indianapolis, Peyton Manning lost his 13th playoff game, the most in NFL history. But more telling, he struggled throwing the deep ball. His arm kind of looked like 12-year-old Henry Rowan Gardner at the end of Rookie of the Year.
Look at you.
You guys remember.
That's an obscure
all
reference.
references.
Lord.
Known and unknown.
Despite Manning's poor showing, he is still Peyton Manning. John Elway says he wants him back next year. Take a listen.
We're not going to talk about your future because he needs to get away, you know. And I knew as a player, the last thing after that last game you want to do is talk about your future because of the fact, even though mine was much happier than ours was on yesterday because of what happened on Sunday. In his situation, I told him, I said, let's not even go into the future. I said, just know how much we want you back, but the thing is for you to take the time and get away from this. And so I told him, 4 or 5 weeks, I'm going to stay in touch with him, but at 4 or 5 weeks, we'll get back together and see where he is. Only Peyton knows how his body feels and what's going on within his body. So I think that is, something that Peyton will have to deal with. And when he goes through his decision, that'll be a part of it. But, we'll continue to monitor that. But the bottom line is we want it back, and it's going to come down to, what Peyton wants to do.
After 18 years in the league, should Peyton Manning actually hang him up? Should he retire, Freddie?
I don't think so because, number one, we know his ego doesn't want him to retire because I would not want that as my final game, the way he looked against the Indianapolis Colts on Sunday because he could not make any throws, and the Colts knew that. Somebody had to have known that he was injured. I think we all knew that based on what we saw from this guy the final 6 weeks of the season. He wasn't right. He wasn't just hurt. He was injured. He was 2 for 12 for 15 yards and overthrew 8 wide receivers. He was clearly not a healthy Peyton Manning. But here's why I don't think he should retire, because before he had that injury, he was more than serviceable what he was able to do dialing up that offense. He is the coach of that offense, and he makes everything go. He still has a little bit more in the tank than people want to give him credit for right now. I know he's an aging quarterback. He's an old Peyton Manning, but he still has more than enough juice left in his body, in his mind, and whatever arm he has left. I don't think he should retire because we're not talking about a guy completely at the end of his rope where it was a gradual or a fast decline when it came to Peyton Manning. The injury robbed him of what the Peyton Manning that we saw. We know he's not going to be the guy that we saw that won MVPs here and MVPs there, not even compared to last year. But I don't think he should retire because I'll take that guy even at 85 to 90% over the majority of quarterbacks in the National Football League, and I think he should stick around at least for one more year.
Here's the thing. I think Peyton Manning is arguably the greatest quarterback in the history of the National Football League. But with that said, when he was at that press conference the other day and was asked about his future, he kind of paused and said he couldn't give an answer. And if you're a professional athlete in that sport where you take the beating you take at what he'll be 39 years old going into next season, if you have any doubts, it's time to go. You got to go. Because if you have a doubt, then when you're in the game, you're going to have more of those doubts. And you can't at this point. And look, we could sit here and talk about how, he doesn't want to go out like that. But is he going to go out any better? There's not a lot of precedent. I know John Elway, has won on his last 2 championships.
He was the gold standard for that.
But that doesn't happen very often, okay? The reality is most times guys end their careers on sour notes. Whether it's, if you look at that sport, Joe Montana with the Chiefs, Dan Marino's ending in Miami, all those guys, for the most part, they all end on sour notes. This is going to be no different. His body is telling him, hey, man, it's enough. You've had a neck fusion. You now got quad injuries, multiple quad injuries, according to Jay Glazer. And as Charles Barkley likes to say, Father Time is undefeated, Freddie, and he's going to be 39. He's not going to get better from a health standpoint, and that arm isn't what it used to be. So at this point, he's got to be self-aware. And I know it's really hard for athletes to be self-aware, especially when you've been that great. But his comments to me, they spoke volumes.
It didn't speak volumes. It didn't speak a volume to me because it's going to be a raw emotion. I think John Elway said it best because everybody is going to feel downcast after the way that they played, losing 24-13 at home in a playoff game. The second time in 3 seasons he's lost the first playoff game playing for the Denver Broncos. Nobody's going to be, hey, it's okay. No one's going to be like that because John Elway knows exactly that feeling. That's why he told Peyton Manning to take time away, whether it's 5 weeks or 6 weeks, whatever you want to do, and I'm going to keep in contact with you, because he knew he was speaking from the emotion of, I can't believe we lost this game. I can't believe I didn't play well. I should have played better. I should have been there for my teammates. He tried to gut it out with an injury. Now, maybe that's on him for not letting people know about that injury or just trying to be more of a man about it, to go out there. He was hurting his team by having that injury. I think we can all say that right now. But I'm not going to look at that press conference or the after-game press conference and say, oh, yeah, that's why you should do it, because you have doubt. I think plenty of people in the Denver Broncos organization had doubts by the way they lost to Indianapolis Colts. They can have doubts about him and doubts about each other, but you let time pass a little bit. Now, if we're not hearing anything, if he's still hemming and hawing 3 to 4 weeks from now, then you know what, George? Your point is valid. But I'm not going to use that as a case to say, okay, Peyton Manning, you felt that way right after losing a tough game like that at home. Yeah, that's the reason you should retire. I don't think he's going to do that based on what he said after that press conference.
Well, it's not just that, though. That arm isn't getting any stronger, Freddie.
Well, I understand.
Like, the reality of this is that.
But the arm was weaker this year.
I mean, he's throwing ducks out there, man.
Because he had a quad injury.
He's looking No.
He had a quad injury. Yes.
Come on, Freddie. This is a guy for years, and his arm strength hasn't been what it's been.
We know the arm strength is not going to be there now.
And it's not going to get better.
But last year, when he threw for over those yards and before he had that injury, he was still dialing it up for the Denver Broncos. That injury, especially at that age, is going to rob a lot of people of their ability.
His ability to pass is more on savvy and being able to get the ball out on a certain time and getting the ball out before the receiver breaks on their route. He's savvy. He's the smartest quarterback arguably we've ever seen. And that's what he's using at this point. He's on fumes physically, man. You think those quads are going to keep getting better? You think that arm strength's going to keep getting better? At 39, there's not a lot of precedent where guys get better with age. I mean, look, I know in Major League Baseball we saw that, in the early 2000s where guys were like fine wine. They got better with age. That ain't the case. That ain't the case right now. He is not going to get healthier. It's just impossible. Science doesn't lie.
I'm not saying science is lying. I'm not saying that, but at the same time, I'm not expecting Peyton Manning to get better, but we're not going to see the same guy we saw the final 6 weeks of the regular season and in that playoff game because he was injured. I'm not expecting that all of a sudden. You can't tell me that he's not going to recover from that quad injury.
But you're going to sit here and tell me he's going to stay healthy for 16 more games next year at 39 years old?
In the National Football League, nobody is really healthy the full season.
And we saw, Aaron Rodgers wasn't healthy, but he beat the Dallas Cowboys.
He's a lot younger than Peyton Manning.
Okay, but that's my point. You're proving my point. He's a lot younger. He can't handle it anymore.
No, I'm not proving your point that he can't handle it, because when he made that pass to Julius Thomas down the left side and the sideline and dropped it in the bucket and also hit the guy in the back corner of the end zone, Demaryius Thomas for a touchdown, there was nobody questioning, the arm strength of Peyton Manning. He still can do it.
No, it's not like the ball was zipped out there. He put the ball out there on a timing route and put it out there on time, using his brain, using his savvy. But here's the thing. You're talking about 2 or 3 passes. What about the other 20 he threw in that game that looked awful? And what about the last 5 weeks we saw of him?
Because he was injured.
Okay,
and when you have
Freddie,
an injury,
at
it's going to affect you.
You're going to keep getting injured, is my point.
We don't know that for sure to say he's going to keep getting injured, George. You can't say next year that he's going to keep getting injured. Unless we have a crystal ball in front of us to know that, no one can say that definitively.
There's a lot of examples of guys his age playing that position who, when they start to deteriorate physically, it's only going to get worse at that point. It's not going to get better.
I'm going to bet on Peyton Manning with his guile coming back from that injury, coming back for one more year, having that motivation. I'll take my chances with that. I don't think he's going to suffer the same quad injury. That
it doesn't have to be the same injury.
I don't think he's going to suffer an injury that's going to be that debilitating. Now, if it's a torn ACL, there's nothing we can do about that.
I'll take history and science on my side.
I'll take Peyton Manning and guile on my side.
And in regards to those Ducks, any pass over 5 yards, just 29% completion rate. So that certainly bodes well in George's argument there. Not playing sides, just saying.
Because of the injury.
Peyton has an all-time great career, no doubt, but after his disappointing performance in the latest first-round playoff exit, the question of whether it's time for Manning to hang it up is for you now. We're doing a vote, so reply yes or no on Twitter using the hashtag #EndOfPeyton, and we'll have the results later. Let's go to South Beach. It's warmer
Why
over
not?
there.
Georgia's hometown.
Yeah, let's talk about South
It's a
Miami.
lot warmer than it is here today, that's for sure.
Alaska's a lot warmer than it is here today, my friend.
After missing 8 games, LeBron James returned to the court and put up 33 points, 7 boards, 5 assists, and 1 coach shove in the Cavs' 107-100 loss to Phoenix. Yes, the coach shove. LeBron pushed Coach David Blatt back when he tried to come between James and a ref. Here, LeBron explained the push.
There was a referee that was away from the play, and I was talking to Eric Lewis, one of the other refs, and Coach Blatt was getting a little fired up about it too, and he was on his way to a technical, so I just got him up out of the way before he got a tee, so just protecting my coach.
All right, LeBron says he's protecting his coach, but, you know, there's certainly been reports about a spotty relationship between coach and LeBron. So the shove, big deal or no?
I'm going to say big deal only because of this. Because everyone is focused on their relationship and everyone's wondering, okay, are they going to find some synergy together? LeBron hasn't necessarily endorsed Blatt by any stretch of the imagination. Really, the only player that's endorsed Blatt is Kyrie Irving. And then there's the general manager, David Griffin. Here's the other thing. David Blatt was the owner's hire. Okay? David Blatt was hired before they thought they could land LeBron. And David Blatt seems to be a guy that's a bit in over his head at this point. Okay? He's having to learn to adjust to the NBA game. And I think LeBron's getting a little annoyed with that because you know what? He's now a 2-time champion, a 4-time MVP. He tried to put this team together, and let's be honest, he did try to put this team together. LeBron played GM, and I know Freddie thinks this too. He may be playing other parts of the organization too. We'll get to Freddie in a second. But here's the thing. I think it's a big deal because of that, because everyone's focused on their relationship. And ultimately, it doesn't show a lot of respect for him, okay? Because is he doing that to Pat Riley or Eric Spoelstra? I mean, he had the bump gate with Eric Spoelstra, and we blew that thing up back 4 years ago. and Spo stood his ground there. You know, he took it with him. He took it strong, Spo.
Throw it up, didn't he?
But David Blatt was kind of like, hey, what are you doing? You know, it was one of those situations where I don't think if you respect someone, you do it that way. Maybe you get in front of them, you slide in front of them, but you don't keep pushing them out. And he pushed them away to the point where if you see that video again, Blatt turns around and is like, yo, man, what's up?
Yeah.
Like, again, that's an issue there. And I think it's because, not so much because I think this is the reason that the Cavs are, 19-20 or under 500, but because of the perception. And LeBron is smart enough. He knows every little thing has been dissected. Now, he hasn't had to deal with the same issues that he's had in Miami. Like, for example, when that team got together, we sat there and dissected everything from everyone's body language, every step. I mean, every time that team played, it was an event. The Cavs haven't had that feel to them like the Heatles did, per se. But he needs to know better, and that's why I think it's a big deal, because this can just mushroom from here.
When does David Blatt learn that he's the assistant coach and LeBron James is the head coach? You can't do that.
That's what I'm saying.
I knew where I was going.
I teed you up for that
You
one.
complete teed me up. Here's why I don't think it's a big deal. I look at that as a heat-of-the-moment situation where LeBron James is trying to make sure, and I think he's doing everything in his power, whether he's getting the right amount of help, no help, whatever that is, to try to get this team back on whatever track that he knows they need to be on, that we saw a little bit of times early in the season. I think he looked at that situation. He wanted David Blatt to get under control, and words were not going to do it. Now, granted, you can't violate that protocol, but when you're LeBron James, you're going to be entitled to certain liberties and perks that other players are not going to be entitled to, because let's be honest, this is his team. It's Daniel Snyder owns it, not Daniel Snyder, excuse me, Dan Gilbert owns the team. But this is LeBron James' team, and everybody knows it. And even if David Blatt doesn't know it, he better figure it out pretty quickly. I'm not saying you can do that to your boss, because technically, according to the letter of the law, David Blatt's the boss, LeBron James is the player. But we know who the boss of Cleveland Cavaliers is. I look at that from that situation last night. It was a heat-of-the-moment thing. LeBron wanted, hey, I'll talk to the referee. You need to get back over there and coach our basketball team. And he wasn't doing it to the right amount of time that LeBron James wanted him to do. So George is right to a standpoint of, yeah, it's a big deal because of who it is. If this is anybody else, we're not talking about it. But because of the Cleveland Cavaliers, they're one game under 500. They've lost 6 in a row.
They're a train wreck. That's why we're talking about it.
Everything is going to be magnified. I'm not going to magnify that push because it was a heat-of-the-moment situation. LeBron James' first game back, and he wants things the way that they're supposed to be that we have not seen from Cleveland so far.
Clearly, it is a train wreck right now. But I want to go harp on this disrespect thing with coach between Blatt and LeBron. I mean, if he's bumping into him, maybe there is no respect there. I mean, is that an issue going forward?
I don't know about the lack of respect there, because when you have a heated moment like what we saw last night, believe me, David Blatt just got here. George's point is valid in terms of that was Pat Riley or somebody else. You know you're not going to do that, but I don't think we would have seen Pat Riley act that way that we saw David Blatt did. David Blatt is still learning about the NBA, not just coaching players, but understanding when you can fight a battle and when you can't fight a battle, how to fight a battle, how not to fight a battle. Pat Riley knows how to get under a referee's skin or get his point across by doing it a different way. He's had enough time to do that in the NBA. Even when he first got to the NBA as a head coach, he wasn't being shoved away by players like we saw last night. So I don't think it's a lack of respect thing. I think David Blatt has to clearly understand the NBA landscape, and after 39 games, we know he has not figured that out yet.
Here's the problem, okay? David Blatt comes from Europe, where the coaches have all the autonomy. They have all the power. Mm-hmm. And he is now in a league where this is a players' league.
Absolutely.
Okay? Going back to, Magic Johnson back in the 80s, through Michael Jordan, through LeBron, through whomever. Okay? And I know the Cavs have tried their best here to try to kind of squash this a little bit by, as I mentioned, David Griffin coming out and defending David Blatt. And again, because it's the owner's guy. And I think they're still paying like 37 other coaches that they fired over the last several years. They're definitely still paying Mike Brown, right? Like, we know that for sure. Are they still paying Byron? They may still be paying Byron.
It may be.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Okay, that's the thing. So they can ill afford to panic here because that's a franchise that, let's be frank, right, has not been a pillar of the NBA community, right? It's not a franchise that you look at outside of the LeBron years. And look, I know they had the Brad Daugherty. No offense to our colleague Brad Daugherty.
Because he's 6'11".
Yeah.
He'll beat him with you.
Absolutely. They had that stretch there with those guys. But really, the real championship type years were the years that LeBron was there.
Absolutely.
So outside of that franchise has been a mess. Okay? And when he left, it was a mess. And now he's back, and it's still kind of a mess. So I think LeBron has kind of found himself in a situation, and David Blatt has found himself in a situation where they may be a little, in Blatt's case at least, a little overwhelmed, and in LeBron's case, I think he's a little underwhelmed.
Right. That's rare because LeBron's the only one in that organization right now that knows exactly what it's like to deal with expectations because he dealt with it in Cleveland, got into the NBA Finals. He dealt with it in Miami, got into 4 straight NBA Finals. It's one thing to look from the outside and say, oh, yeah, if I was a part of that, this is what I would do. But now they're all in that cauldron. And LeBron is like, look, we did it this way. I know this way it works. But David Blatt, to your point, he's used to having that autonomy as a head coach. Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love, they're still trying to figure their way. And LeBron is like, look, you guys have no idea what you're doing or what we're involved in. And if you don't figure this out, you think it's bad now, it's going to get a lot worse before it gets a lot better.
You know what the deal is? David Blatt's got to make sure they run the offense, okay, because it looks like everybody's breaking it off anytime he calls the play.
Absolutely.
And you know what? More importantly, they got to play some defense. They're ranked 23rd in defensive efficiency, okay? There's only been 3 teams in the history of the NBA that have won a championship outside of the top 10, let alone down to 23. That's going to be their biggest problem. That's the reason, I know Stephen A. has already said this on this show, that there's no chance that team wins a title this year.
And also, you got to cut down your turnovers. Kyrie and LeBron combined for 13 turnovers last night. We need to talk more about that in addition to their defense. Stop throwing the ball away in key situations like we saw last night versus Phoenix.
They can't coexist. There's no way they can win a title. Can they make it to the finals in the East real quick?
No, I don't even think they get out of the East. I think if they play Atlanta right now, I mean, Atlanta's killing people, man. They're like Spurs East right now.
Absolutely.
Okay, and Chicago, I still think Chicago, I know that they beat them once in the regular season already. Cleveland beat Chicago. But I think Chicago is a better team, and I think that they have this maintenance plan with Derrick Rose, and I think it's going to pay off for them in the end.
The Wizards are a better team. Beal coming back from injury, John Wall averaging double digits.
I still don't trust the Wizards as much because I don't trust the coach as much.
That's fine, but I trust their front line. Their front line can defend with Nene and Marcin Gortat, and I think John Wall continues to show why he's an elite point guard now, where he's not just doing the plays, but doing the little things that make things necessary for Washington.
Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, first time they met this season, it was ugly for Green Bay. Aaron Rodgers avoided throwing to Richard Sherman almost all game, just 5 pass attempts in that direction. But the discount double checker says he's not scared of Richard Sherman. Take a listen.
You look for matchups and you go through your progression and throw it to the guy who's most open. He's a great player. You watch the film back, wasn't like the guy he was guarding was open. Not surprising. You know, that's why he gets paid the way he does, and he has the reputation that he does. He's a great cover guy. He's very intelligent. He's got great ball skills. You know, very good timing with his with his technique, and he knows how to cover people. So you just have you have to be aware of him. You know, not scared of him, but you have a ton of respect for him. I mean, look at the numbers. They don't lie.
Rodgers isn't scared of Sherman. And Ryan Clark isn't scared of Rodgers. Ryan Clark back at the desk. What's up, sir?
Hey, man, you know, man, I'm just glad to be here with you guys today.
Look at you.
Good to have you back.
You know, it's just good to be a part of this crew.
There you go.
You know what I mean? My first day back on First Take, I get you guys. Hey, man, you know what? That's a good day to me.
That's a good day for us,
That's
too.
a good day to me.
We missed you, right?
It's just a matter of time before you join us full time, man.
Hey, don't rush me. Don't rush me.
Come on, Suits. Come on, Suits. Make this thing happen already. What are we waiting for around
Remember
here?
who's saying this. I like my job.
Good call. Good call. All right, Green Bay, 7-point dogs going into this one. What % chance do you give Green Bay of pulling the upset, Ryan?
Well, see, these percentage questions are such a setup. You know what I mean? It's like,
Loaded question,
it's
isn't
like doing the weather. You know what I mean? It's a 40% chance of rain, then it's sunny all day. You know what I mean? So I'm going to give them 25%. Obviously, both teams are extremely different from what they were week one. You heard Aaron Rodgers say, you know, I'm not scared of Richard Sherman. I just respect him and understand how well he can play the position, which is true. I also feel like, though, if you look at the game plan they had, they aligned Jordy Nelson to the left side of the defense, of the offense all game, to have him on Byron Maxwell and try to attack it that way. So that tells me it wasn't necessarily as much of Aaron Rodgers as it was a game plan thing to try to attack the other side. I think they'll have to do something differently because they understood by cutting off half of the field, you really hurt your offense. He only threw for 189 yards. He also had an interception going at Maxwell. So I think they'll do things differently there. Their chance to win comes with Eddie Lacy. If you remember, running downhill, they were successful until Eddie Lacy met that man, Cam Chancellor. You know what I mean?
There goes that man.
Mama, there goes that man. Open field, Cam Chancellor hits Eddie Lacy. He gets a concussion. He's not able to play anymore. Now the game changed, and it totally relied on Aaron Rodgers, who is very capable of winning the game, but it's hard to beat the Seattle Seahawks when you're one-dimensional. So for them, they have to get Eddie Lacy going. Aaron Rodgers has to be sharp, but you have to protect him. You remember last game, you know, Michael Bennett got after him and Cliff Averill. You have to give Aaron Rodgers time to throw the ball. Hopefully, you can get Jordy Nelson, you can get Randall Cobb involved. And the one thing they have now is Adams. He wasn't a guy that we knew about going into the first game of the season. Now you look at the New England game. When Revis takes away Jordy Nelson and Revis is on one guy, they're doubling another. That's who they go to. Last week against the Dallas Cowboys, that's who they go to. So hopefully you can get him to going and have him matched up on the third corner to get your offense moving.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Freddie.
No, go ahead. Age before, beauty before age.
All right, let's go.
Age here.
Stop being so nice, guys.
He is the nicest.
This is not the way this show is ran.
No, we already yelled at each other.
It's not ran on nicety.
You missed the first segment.
It's about to get ugly.
I'm going to start yelling then. Good. I'll bring it.
It's going to get ugly in a minute.
I'm going to give him 20% because Rodgers is hurt. Okay, if he was healthy, I'd probably go up to like 30, 35%. But here's the thing. It didn't work the first time when you didn't throw to Richard Sherman. You might as well try something different, okay? I mean, at some point, as Ryan said, you can't just cut off half the field. So, you know what? You got to line up guys in different spots and create opportunities for them that way. Mix things up. But here's the thing, man. That Seattle team, I don't want to sit here, and I'm not the guy that the newest thing is the greatest thing. But I haven't seen a defense play like this since the 2000 Ravens. I mean, this
2008 Steelers were pretty good.
Yeah, they were pretty good.
I mean, just check the numbers.
I told you to get ugly up in here.
The numbers are much better than Seattle last year. It's just numbers. He said numbers never lie. I heard Aaron Rodgers said the numbers don't lie.
That show doesn't exist anymore around here.
Well, I said the numbers never lie. You know what I mean? So I'm just saying, Aaron Rodgers just said it, and I was like,
it's one of the best defenses I've ever seen. Okay, it's a top 5 defense I've ever seen, and I'm 37 years old, and I've seen a lot of defenses, good, bad, or indifferent, and they're just unbelievable. I mean, the pressure that they put on him. I think the thing with Lacy is he's big and he's bulky and he's strong, but I don't know if he's got enough giddy up to hit on. First of all, you can't go outside with him. You got to try to run it up the middle, and I think that you're running into that problem. You're running right into the teeth of that defense. Cam Chancellor and those guys are going to give him all they can give him. And I just think at the end of the day, there's just not a lot of opportunity, I think, for Green Bay to win this game. I'm going to give him 20% only because Aaron Rodgers is the best quarterback in the league, and I think he can get hot and beat anybody on any given day. I just think Seattle's just too overwhelming defensively.
I give them 10% of winning this game.
Wow.
Seriously. I mean, you're right about the Rodgers injury. he's going to be less healthy than he was last week against Dallas, and he's not going against that Dallas defense. He's going against a Dallas defense circa the 1990s. That's what Seattle reminds me of. All those fast guys on the outside. Bobby Wagner, the minute he got back from injury, I thought he should have been more of an MVP candidate in the National Football League. As great as Cam Chancellor is, as great as Richard Sherman is, they got those big fat nasties up front led by Michael Bennett keeping people clean. But the minute Bobby Wagner got healthy, all of a sudden that defense went from to oh my goodness, because that guy for my money is the best middle linebacker in the league. Yeah. Now you got all those elements against you, and you got to go to the uptown funk known as Seattle and try to win up there. They're going to need Bruno Mars and Mark Ronson and everybody they can to try to win this ball game. Aaron Rodgers being hurt, that offensive line is not as good as the Cowboys' offensive line, because that offensive line was the one offensive line that put Seattle on their back. Those 5 guys up front moved that line of scrimmage. Green Bay's offensive line is good. They're not those guys. And now you got a beat-up quarterback. You hope that Eddie Lacy won't put the ball on the ground, and a very fast and motivated Seattle defense. I give them 10% chance at best to beat Seattle in Seattle.
Here's the other thing we haven't talked about. Green Bay's defense is not that good either. So, I mean, it's not like Seattle's not going to be able to move the ball on them.
Because the Cowboys moved it on them.
But this is the thing I feel about Green Bay. I feel like matching up defensively with the defensive backs, they can match up with the wide receivers of the Seattle Seahawks. If you look at the Seattle Seahawks, a lot of plays are created in the passing game by Russell Wilson getting out of the pocket. Russell Wilson, breaking the integrity of the defensive line and throwing the ball downfield. I feel like, Sam Shields, Tramon Williams, Micah Hyde, these guys can match up on the receivers and kind of take them out of the game. And now your front 7 or your front 8, if you bring the safety in the box, can have an opportunity to stop Marshawn Lynch, play the zone read with Russell Wilson. So I feel like defensively they actually have an advantage over the Seattle Seahawks.
Because you're talking about you don't think Seattle's offense is very good.
They don't run away from people.
No, the offense is good.
Right.
They have a good offense in the way it's ran in complement to their defense.
Right.
You know you're going to stop people. People aren't going to score a lot of points. So what are we going to do? The complement to that is ball control. Give the ball to Marshawn Lynch. Have Russell Wilson, if his first read's not there, he scrambles or he gets out of the pocket and makes throws downfield. If you can match up man-to-man on those guys and lock them up, which I feel like Green Bay can in the back end, then you have an opportunity to stop the run. If you watch the first game, it wasn't the yards Marshawn Lynch was able to gain, which was 110 yards. It was the way he gained them.
Absolutely.
People diving at his legs, running through linebackers, running through safeties. So if you can lock those guys up man-to-man on the outside, have more people in the box, and say, hey, we're going to make Russell Wilson beat us throwing, I think they have an opportunity to keep it to a low-scoring game.
Jordy Nelson has to step up. He disappeared against Dallas last week. Brandon Carr shut him down. That guy has to have a big game. I don't care who's on him.
Nobody's giving the Green Bay a chance here, but let's take it the next level real quick. 7-point spread then. Can Green Bay cover the spread?
No.
Okay.
I don't bet. So.
I don't bet either, but common sense tells me no.
If Seattle's going to win, they're going to blow them out.
Well, I don't have common sense.
Wait a minute. Now, hold on now.
Bam, take that.
Because common sense ain't common.
Drop that mic.
Easy. Don't get testy.
I'm trying to be testy.
He's trying to stir it up.
I know. He has common sense.
Who was the most popular person in Green Bay today? Me.
Oh.
I went 25%.
Well, we're a lot more popular in Seattle.
20.
So let me get
10.
this straight. Because you picked 25%, it was better than ours. That makes you more popular.
more popular.
You're still picking them to lose.
Right now, people in Green Bay
common sense right there.
love me.
Common sense. Common sense is going to be back a little later to talk about the AFC Championship game. So, Ryan, we'll see you in a bit.
Yes, sir.
Keep with the common sense, though. I like it. His homecoming hasn't been quite what LeBron expected when he returned to play for the Cavs. Since coming to Cleveland, the Cavs are 19-20. James missed 8 games, the longest stretch of his career, and no team has ever won the championship after being at or under 500 this late in the season. Was the decision 2.0 a mistake? Right now, we welcome in ESPN NBA analyst to the stars, Tim Legler. Timmy, what's going on, sir?
What's up?
All right, decision 2.0. Does LeBron regret leaving Miami?
I think regret might be a little bit too strong of a word, but there's no question in my mind he's second-guessing it, and I think he should. And that's been the body language thing that I've seen in LeBron this year. I think that's what it's all about. Look, if he doesn't leave Miami, I think that team's back in the finals. And he went to 4 straight. He only won 2 of those. He obviously wants more titles. He's looking at the situation he's in, and a lot of the things that are going on, I think it's kind of hit him. This is going to be a lot more work than I thought it was going to be. And that's where I think the negative body language was with LeBron early in the season. I don't think that Kevin Love is the impact that he thought he would be. Now, I think a lot of that has to do with the way he's being used. David Blatt. For LeBron, it's like, who is David Blatt? If LeBron James had signed there first, I don't think David Blatt would be the head coach. I think we all know that.
Right.
So LeBron James, does he give this guy enough respect to think that he's the guy we can ride this storm out with? I don't know that he believes that yet. Does he look? He looks around at the roster. Varejao going down, I think, really kind of was deflating to LeBron James. He trusts him, counts on him. So there's a lot of stuff swirling around in his head right now, wondering, man, should I have stayed? Did we have a couple more title runs in us in Miami? Because this is not going to be easy with what we have right here in Cleveland.
Did you see that Christmas game and the way he was all lovey-dovey with everybody from Miami? He's never been like that with the folks in Cleveland since he's gotten back. I mean, I was at that game, okay? I was there on the floor watching all the stuff going on pre-game and post-game, and he was interacting far more with the people from Miami and that organization than his guys on his own roster. And I think Tim's right. I think he sees Kevin Love and he says, man, maybe I underestimated what Chris Bosh brought to the table, especially on the defensive end of the floor. And again, Chris Bosh, he took a lot of heat because he took a lesser role, but it was for the betterment of the team. And really the same thing for Dwayne Wade. And you've got a guy in Kevin Love who's used to getting his on bad teams, okay, and Kyrie getting his on bad teams. And yeah, if you're looking around, you're saying, Tim is right. You're like, we probably could have gotten to the finals again. And again, Dan Le Batard said this on his radio show, that he had heard that Pau Gasol was ready to sign in Miami, and LeBron told him, hey, I'm going to Cleveland. And that changed that. So they could have had the big four in Miami potentially with Pau Gasol, LeBron, Chris Bosh, and Dwayne Wade.
I think regret, too, is a strong word, but I will say this. When you have head shaking already at the 39 games, and the guy doing the most head shaking is the guy you need to make this work, that doesn't bode well for Cleveland, because I guarantee you LeBron looks at Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love and he's saying, what the blank is wrong with you guys? Right. Because you knew what we signed up for together. This is why I came back to Cleveland, to make you guys a championship organization and make you two better championship players. And you guys are trying to do the same things that allowed you to win 33 games last year with Cleveland, or not even more than 45 games in Minnesota. Why would you think that would work here when you know it didn't work over there? So that's the problem from that standpoint, number one. Number two, to your point about Blatt not using Kevin Love effectively, well, now what is Kevin Love going to do about it? Seriously. Because if you know that you're going to be option 2 or option 3, you knew that coming to the Cleveland Cavaliers. You weren't just coming to this team and LeBron and Kyrie going to say, hey, you're number 1 in Minnesota, you're going to be number 1 here. No, you know on most nights you're going to be option 2 or option number 3. So if David Blatt's not using you effectively and you haven't said anything about it or done anything to try to usurp that, I mean, no disrespect to Markieff Morris, and I know it's a lot because Kevin Love's not a great defender, but 35 on Kevin Love, and they had to sit you down in the fourth quarter.
I mean, that's just terrible, man. That's
Venus DeMilo could have played better defense than Kevin Love last night. So what are you?
That's a modern reference right there.
I got news for you.
What's that?
Guess what? Kevin Love just dropped down a rung on the offensive priorities list.
He should,
because of J.R. Smith. J.R. Smith took 14 threes last night.
He took more shots than LeBron.
Okay, Kevin Love, who has been basically relegated to a spot of three-point shooter since he got there, he's taken 5 or 6 a game.
Right.
J.R. Smith took 14 threes last night.
Because he thought he was at the carnival getting the stuffed animal.
That's game. Why. So my point being, he's not going to pass up anything that comes his way. Nope. So now you have Kevin Love already trying to figure out, man, it's a lot harder to play with guys that are dominating the ball when in Minnesota I touched it first every time up the floor. Now he's trying to figure out a way to play off the ball. I can even see, I was out at the game in Oakland when they played the Warriors the other night. He's aiming the ball on his jump shot because
he doesn't know when he's going to see the ball again.
Exactly right. If he passes the shot up or misses that shot, he might not see it for another 6-8 trips. And you can just tell. I know that feeling when guys start to shoot the ball like that. It's not natural, free-flowing, like, oh, I'll shoot this, who cares? I'll get one on the next possession, like he did in Minnesota. It's not like that now. It's affecting his mind a little bit the way he's playing. And now J.R. Smith comes in. Every time he touched it, it's going up. So where Kevin Love, look, he has said, I'm not opting out. Well, he said, I'm not planning on opting out. Right. I think that was a very strategic way of putting that. Because no, of course you didn't plan on it when you came there. You came there to win championships with LeBron James. But he's evaluating the landscape of this whole situation right now. And he doesn't play the fourth quarter of a game. It's probably the first time in his life he was not on the floor in crunch time to decide a game where the coach said, we're better off without you right now. Take a seat. All these things, man, are, as an athlete, they're echoing in his mind right now. Well, his relationship with Blatt can't be great after what happened last night.
To further your point, this isn't even the first time he's been benched in the fourth quarter. And then, here's the thing. I've read the stories out of Cleveland that he's been pouting or whatnot, this, that, and the other. When I was at that Christmas game, Legs, I saw him. Freddie, Kerry, I saw him. Every time he didn't get the ball, okay, he would turn to Blatt and kind of do one of these, like, what's up? Like, what's up? There was one point where he didn't get the ball, and I'm going to stand up to do this, okay? He didn't get the ball, and he spun around and went like this.
That's a good move by Michael.
Okay?
Wow, Michael Jackson would be proud of that.
It was like a 6-year-old kid not getting the ball. You know what I mean? Like, that's what it felt like. And I was just sitting there going like, man, there is some serious issues going on there in Cleveland with Kevin Love. And you know what? To his credit, ever since the preseason when he said he wasn't getting the ball in the right places, he said all the right things. So I'll give him credit for that. But, yeah, that thing is not ending well.
We're harping on Kevin Love here. Between Kevin Love and Kyrie Irving, who shoulders more of the blame? Who needs to step up even more?
Man, here's the thing. I don't necessarily think it's either one of those guys. I personally think it's this entire situation is going to hinge on a relationship between David Blatt and LeBron James. If LeBron James can develop the type of respect and trust in his coach, other guys are going to fall in line, and I think they can figure out how to make this work because Kevin Love doesn't have a choice right now about what his production is going to be. He doesn't. He's not involved offensively. Look at his free throw numbers, career low. Offensive rebounding numbers, career low. Why? Because he's basically become a really, really well-paid Mike Miller. That's who he's playing like. He's obviously a much better rebounder than that. But offensively, that's what his role is on this team. He doesn't get pick and pops. He gets rare post touches. The ball doesn't come to him at the high post to initiate the offense with his dribble handoff game the way he did in Minnesota. He basically has to wait for the ball to come to him out of double teams or penetration. So I don't put as much of this in Kevin Love's lap. Like, man, you're not as good as we thought. He doesn't really have an opportunity with two guys that dominate the basketball and do what they want with it. Kyrie Irving is playing more like he did before LeBron got there. But even look at last night down the stretch of that game. Kyrie Irving stood and watched. And they went 3 minutes from the 3:50 mark to the 50-second mark without a point. While Phoenix gets 9 free throws in a layup, they're shooting a bunch of jump shots late in the shot clock because LeBron James is holding the ball the entire possession. So they have a lot to figure out, and I put it on LeBron and Blatt to do that. The two of those guys need to figure this out more so than Kyrie or Kevin Love making more adjustments.
What's the likelihood, let's say if this continues for argument's sake, let's say Cleveland wins 42 games, no more than 45. Oof. Then what is it going to be?
So, in other words, in the East, you're talking about a 3 seed. No, I'm just
not this year.
Not this year.
Maybe a 6. Last year, yes. This year, no.
6 seed is a very good chance they lose in the first round.
Right, exactly. What's going to happen with David Blatt? Because there's no way. I know if I'm Dan Gilbert, and there's no need to try to have a situation to see if it can be fixed when you can just cut it off right away and find an experienced coach because maybe this guy won't be able to figure out the NBA team.
Well, I've said it now for probably 2 to 3 weeks that to me, and I hate to say this, but I think David Blatt's almost like dead man walking right now. I don't see a way, envision any scenario in which he is there next year. Whether they fire him some point during the season this year because they just don't want to waste any time and know that every year is priceless to LeBron James. When you have him on your team, you need to try to win that year. Or he makes it through the year and they go in a different direction next year. Particularly if they lose in the first round of playoffs. There's just no way that he's going to get enough support from that team regardless of what Gilbert says, or Griffin says. And I think he painted himself into a corner the other day by saying, no, he's our guy. He's not going anywhere. All this talk's ridiculous. Well, Kevin Love's listening to that, too. He can opt out. If he doesn't like this situation, he might not even be there next year.
Hello, Lakers.
Very true. Kerry Champion's excited about that. In the preseason, a lot of people obviously picked Cleveland to emerge out of the East. But right now, Atlanta, is there anyone hotter than the Hawks right now? They've won 9 straight. Now, Golden State has the best record in the league. But give me your 5 top teams in the league right now. Legs, we'll start with you.
Well, I'm going to take a look at my list here. So number 5, I've got Rockets, 4 Hawks, 3 Memphis, 2 Portland, 1 Golden State. And the only one on this list of those 5 that I was certain about was the Golden State Warriors. They've been the best team in the NBA this year, and there's no doubt about it. The most consistent team. They're offensively and defensively, they play both ends of the floor equally well. I love the fact that Draymond Green gives them the versatility to play these smaller lineups.
One of my favorite players.
He is the glue to this entire situation.
One of my favorite players.
Because he's playing the 4, and he's about 6'7", and they don't give up anything defensively. And offensively, obviously, he's turned into a great 3-point shooter. He's a great passer, which enables the ball to continue to move. but they can play lineups with like 4 different 6'7", 6'8" guys on the floor at the same time. When they put Livingston, Iguodala, Draymond Green out there, Klay Thompson, they're so versatile what they can do defensively. And obviously, no one has proven to me yet that they know how to stop them. They do what they want to offensively. So they're clearly number one. And then I've got Portland, Memphis, Atlanta, and Houston. And then I wrote a list here for others because I think this list is going to change dramatically as the year goes on. Chicago, Oklahoma City, San Antonio, Dallas. And then I have Cleveland at the bottom of my others list because you can't completely write off a team with LeBron James on it, all right? But Chicago, Oklahoma City, San Antonio, and Dallas. I think all 4 of those teams have a great chance to be into this top 5 by the time it ends. But they've had some real rough patches to this point in the season, and that's why they're not there right now.
I'm going to go with starting at number 5. I got Chicago at number 5. I just think Pau Gasol has had, he looks like a completely different player.
Lately,
and look, he's been healthy. He's not playing under Mike D'Antoni anymore. Right. And look, I'm a guy, I like Mike D'Antoni. I think he's obviously had a lot of success, but it just didn't fit and work with Pau. But Pau's been unbelievable. Jimmy Butler obviously has been fantastic for them. Then I've got Memphis. Marc Gasol to me has been, you know what? Mike Conley, too. Underrated. Yes. There are guys that they don't get enough love when we talk about the best players at their positions in the league, and those 2 guys have been awesome. And Zebo, getting a little older, but still producing at a really high level. I still think their bench could use some work, but they're still playing at a really high level. Portland, to me, their bench has gotten a little better this year. It's still not very strong, but God, Damian Lillard. Damian Lillard, to me, is an MVP candidate right now. Yeah. And LaMarcus Aldridge continues to give you the production that he's been giving you. I've got Atlanta. They're Spurs East right now. It doesn't matter. All 5 guys can face up and shoot the ball. There's not a lot of teams that can say that in the NBA. And then I've got the Golden State Warriors, as Tim mentioned. Draymond Green, what he's been doing. He's a bigger, more athletic version of like a Shane Battier because he does a little bit of everything, and he's as smart as anyone on the floor. And I just think the ascension of Klay Thompson, he's no longer relegated to just being a 3-point shooter. He's taken it to the hole. He's doing a lot of different things offensively, and he's gotten even better than he was last year defensively. And obviously, Steph Curry is an MVP candidate.
Yeah, my top 5, I got Memphis at number 5. Mike Conley Jr. is an elite point guard to me right now. Guy's shooting over 44% from the 3-point line, averaging over 18 points a game. This is now his basketball team. I have them number 5. Houston is number 4. People don't realize this. Houston is second in points allowed. What was the knock on this basketball team for a long time under Kevin McHale?
Defense.
Didn't play any defense.
Yeah.
Well, that's not the case anymore. Trevor Reeves has been really good. They're doing this without Terrence Jones. When they get him back from the leg injury, how much better defensively are they going to be? And James Harden leading the league in scoring. I got Portland at number 3. They've won 4 in a row. LaMarcus Aldridge and Damian Lillard, they're averaging over 45 points per game. But their stealth bomber is Wesley Matthews. He may be the most underrated 2-way player in the NBA, averaging over 16 points a game. And night after night will not shut down the best opposing player, the best offensive player, but can really slow him down a little bit. I got Atlanta at number 2. They've won 9 in a row. I had Al Horford on my radio show last night. He is that glue. But he also talked about, you know what? We have confidence because we know we can go out there and expect to win. During the stretch, they've beaten teams like Washington twice. They've beaten the Clippers. They've beaten Houston. They've beaten Dallas. They've beaten Memphis. They haven't just beaten the scrubs. They've beaten the top teams in the NBA. I have them number 2. And Golden State, their defense is really underrated, giving up only a little more than 98 points per game. They've won 7 in a row. Draymond Green, Steph Curry. And how about Steve Kerr? People talk about what are they going to do without Mark Jackson? Well, it's been a seamus and better transition with that guy on the bench.
Their defense is actually better than their offense right now as far as efficiency is concerned, Golden State. And by God, Steve Kerr, what a great decision not to go to the Knicks.
Imagine if that Golden State job,
that hurts, but you're right.
If the Warriors job even took another week to open up.
Right.
Steve Kerr's coaching the Knicks right
now. And miserable.
And he's looking like David Blatt, the way David Blatt looks in Cleveland.
Absolutely. So, yeah, you talk about he had a team built to win. Give Mark Jackson credit for the job he did, but Steve Kerr's made them better. Yeah. He's made them better. The way that their ball movement works now, the read and react stuff is better than it was. He's figured out a way to utilize these smaller lineups and not give up anything defensively. And obviously these guys are having a lot of fun playing for him. I was just out with Steph. We talked about this when I was out there for the Cleveland game. And, he just said, this is fantastic, man. The guys are having so much fun playing for him.
And I'm glad you mentioned Klay Thompson. That's an underrated defender, too.
Oh, yeah.
He's long, he's lean, he's quick. He has that placid demeanor, but there's a killer between those eyes because his dad is Michael Thompson playing in the NBA. And Michael Thompson, I don't know where he got that from because I didn't play any defense in the NBA, so I'm glad my son is doing it on that level. But Klay Thompson has become that guy, a two-way player as well that you really have to game plan for. And I don't think a lot of people thought that would happen to this level with Klay Thompson in Golden State.
For the 4th straight year, the Patriots reached the AFC Championship game, and they'll look to join the Cowboys and Steelers as the only teams to make 8 Super Bowls. Andrew Luck and the Colts stand in their way. But in the past, Brady's 3-0 against Luck, winning by a combined score of 144-66, fellas. Vegas has New England as 7-point favorites. What % chance do we give the Colts of beating the Patriots? Of course, we welcome back Ryan Clark, Mr. Common Sense.
Because he loves percentage questions.
He loves them.
I know. I was thinking that to myself. So, right, this is what happens when you get breaks in between shows because you guys don't get breaks.
Right.
So I go on Twitter because I'm like, man, right now they gotta love me in Green Bay.
Right.
What did they say?
They don't. They don't.
25%? Come on, man.
They were picking us to lose.
Yeah, it wasn't good.
But compared to these guys,
I guess how many did you get? Aaron Rodgers torched you when he played against you. You get any of those?
Well, somebody did tell me I'm a better commentator than football player. So
Wow.
I guess it's like a compliment.
Really?
It's like a compliment.
Yeah. Not really, though. Not really.
So I was thinking,
it's like a hashtag, well, actually.
right.
but the way you view it, no, it's a compliment.
I was like, well, at least I'm good on TV.
That's true. And you're good at football. Nice try.
Your percentage chance the Colts beat the Pats.
31.5%.
Wow.
Damn.
You like it?
I can't wait to hear how you arrived at this number.
You like it?
I like it. I love it as a matter of
I
fact.
really don't know how I arrived at it. It's just what I felt.
Yeah, whatever.
I felt it in
Just
my
go with your
heart.
gut.
When I got the question pre-show,
Right.
that's what I felt.
Okay.
So I went with it.
Commit.
Because if you believe it,
Yeah.
then it shall be.
Right.
You know what I mean? But you look at it, the last 2 games against New England Patriots, the Colts haven't been close.
Right.
They're still rushing the ball against the Indianapolis Colts. They're still running. Jonas Gray, I don't even know if he's on the team anymore.
Right.
Because they won't let him play. But he's still running the ball against the Indianapolis Colts. I mean, you think about it. He goes for 201 yards. He gets 4 touchdowns. Last year in the playoffs, LeGarrette Blount rushes for 166 yards and 4 touchdowns. So if you're the Indianapolis Colts, your first thing has to be, we need to stop the run. It's already hard enough to stop Tom Brady, but when you're going to give him 200 yards rushing, it's impossible to beat this team because now you're susceptible to the play-action pass. Gronkowski's running all over the place. He's jumping over guys, breaking tackles, blocking people under the camera. You know what I mean? So if you're the Indianapolis Colts, this game comes down to toughness. If you watched that Denver game last week, there were times they were taking shots from overhead, and every defensive back was on the line of scrimmage pressing the wide receiver. That's what you have to do. You have to get in Edelman's face. You have to get in Brandon LaFell's face and say, you know what, Tom Brady, you're going to have to be better than us outside in order to win this game. And that's their only chance. And if you look at Andrew Luck, what he has to do, not throw it to the other team. I remember I had just tweeted how cool Andrew Luck was because I remember playing him and they blew us out and they were throwing the ball downfield. And every time we got close to him or we hit him and he made a throw, he would say, good hit. Good job. And he'd laugh and smile, and his beard would be hanging under his chin. And he'd slap you on the helmet, and he'd come back and just do it again. Raheem Morris said, he's like, Andrew Luck, he called him a dude. He was like, because he throws the ball, he gets hit, he gets up, and he throws it again. But every now and then, he throws balls into coverage. So for him, he needs to be careful, not turn the ball over, and you have to stop the run. And that's what gives you a 31.5% chance of winning.
Well done.
He trusts his arm probably, as much as anyone because he's so good. My partner Mark Schlereth on the radio talks about how a lot of his interceptions are because that's the game plan. They throw the ball down the field as much as anyone in the league, so they like to test the boundary, specifically with a guy like T.Y. Hilton. They like to go down the field. But I think here's the thing, man. They don't have much of a chance at all, I don't think. And look,
you still haven't given me percentage.
Okay, 17.5%.
Oh, that's good.
Okay, 17.5% chance. And really, the only 17.5% chance I'm going to give is because of Andrew Luck. Well, Vontae Davis is really good too. But that's it, though. What do they really have on that team? If you look at that roster, there's probably, a handful of players that you would say, I want that guy on my team all day, any day, regardless of where I'm at. You can't, on New England, you could say there's more than 4 or 5 guys. There's probably, 10 or 12 guys you'd say, I want up my team. And that's the way I look at it. At the end of the day, Indianapolis' team is not better than New England. New England is a far better franchise, organization, team, 53-man roster than the Indianapolis Colts are. They've got Andrew Luck. They've got a couple of nice receivers in Reggie Wayne and T.Y. Hilton. I don't even think their tight ends are that good. I just think he's got a rapport with Fleener because he played with him in college. I think Allen is actually a better tight end. They just don't use him enough, and he hasn't been healthy. That doesn't help either. But on defense, I'm just not sold on Indianapolis. Vontae's a beast. He's a dog. He's really good.
Yes.
I don't know about any of the other guys they got on defense.
So
They also have Trent Richardson.
Yes, we do.
Well, he's actually on the sideline.
On the sidelines.
Forget that.
He's
on the side. That's a Steelers-Browns thing.
That was trolling right
That's
there.
an old school Steelers-Browns thing that he's doing.
Completely. You can't even argue that.
Guys,
That's the worst trade there's been in the NFL in the last 2
You
years.
can't even argue that. I know
Why
you
would I
are.
ever
It was a
troll?
professional
Look at this guy.
criticism. That's exactly what you
True
just
or
did.
false? That's the worst trade in the NFL in the last 2 years. First round pick for him.
I do percentage questions.
Oh, wow. so far, we've got math like the invitation game and dude from the Big Lebowski for both of these two trying to say what's going to happen with the Colts and Patriots. I'm going to say 0. Seriously.
Wow. Look at that. Come on, Freddie.
And believe me, I know I'm going to hear about it. I understand it. I love Andrew Luck. He always battles. That when they did the Total Access on NFL Network and they mic'd him up, that was pretty cool how he does it. Oh, man, good hit. Hey, you're hitting today. He may not get hit a lot, but Tom Brady and the Patriots have the one thing in their favor, other than talent, of course. They hate the fact that people are throwing Spygate in their face and they haven't won a championship in 2004. They're sick and tired of hearing that. Never mind the fact that they've had a better record ever since Spygate than when they had when Spygate was going on. So they've completely thrown that out of the window. But they hate the fact they haven't won an NFL championship since 2004. They've been to the Super Bowl twice since then, and they lost to the Giants.
Couple bad bounces, yeah.
Oh, completely.
Yeah.
David Tyree doesn't pull the helicopter maneuver, and Mario Manningham, if his shoe size is a little bit longer, we're talking about the Patriots having 5 Super Bowl championships and not only 3. So I think that motivation, the defense is really, really good. I know they suffered a little bit against Baltimore. How about let's give the Ravens credit? That offense was pretty good last week.
Yeah.
Joe Flacco dialed up until the last part. The running game was there at 4 set. That offense was pretty good, and I give the Patriots credit from battling back from 14 points down twice to win that ball game. The Ravens team is better than the Colts team. That game was for the AFC Championship last weekend. That's why I think the Colts have no shot at winning.
Right. Let me ask you, because he mentioned last week and the Patriots kind of struggling a little bit on defense. And look, I think Darrelle Revis is the best corner in the league. I think he's been that for several years. I know Richard Sherman and Patrick Peterson are in the discussion. I think we're splitting hairs. But he had a bad game by Revis standards, got called for a couple of flags. But to me, he pulls and grabs and clutches all the time. He just got called in last week's game. But that's no different than what he's done his entire career.
No, definitely. I mean, that's the way he plays. Revis is crafty. He's very patient at the line. And when you're that patient at the line, sometimes you're going to have to hold. Sometimes you're going to have to grab. But are they going to call it every
time?
They're not going to do it. They're not going to do it. And a guy like him will get their respect. I mean, the ones they called last week, they just had to. You know, the pull.
They were blatant.
Yeah, the pull on the whip route to Steve Smith. He pulls him and turns his body. You got to call that. Down the field, he has the guy hooked. You have to call that. But the other times, they're not going to call those penalties, and especially on that guy. So for me, that's what the New England Patriots have going for them. You can lock Revis up on the number 2 guy, then play man under, which is have a guy beat up T.Y. on the line with McCourty over the top of him. Right. And now you force Andrew Luck to beat you another way. Is he going to be patient enough to do that?
You and I talked about this yesterday on the radio, and you said that Belichick also is going to force Andrew Luck to not go to his primary options. He's going to have to go to his secondary and third option.
That's what he does. I mean, I think when you gave Belichick that Revis chess piece, you basically say, okay, we're going to let y'all go to the Super Bowl. Because
it was legalized robbery. That's what it was.
Go ahead, Bill. Now just out scheme us every week. You know, and that's what they've been doing. You know, whether it was playing against Green Bay and locking him up on Cobb early in the game and allowing the other guys to play, you know, zone defense around him. They actually use him like a shutdown corner is supposed to be used. Say, you know what? You and this guy, that's your man.
Right.
And we'll figure the rest out around you. And that's what they've been doing all season.
If I'm the coach, there's no way I let Gronkowski beat me. Brandon LaFell, Julian Edelman, you guys.
Good luck with that.
I understand it. That's going to have to be the way to do it. He is a beast.
He's like Frankenstein.
You can put 3 guys on him and take your chances. And that's the only
Dude has on 6 knee braces, 4 elbow pads, and an elbow brace.
Yeah, you hear him coming, and then you hear him leaving.
You can't stop it.
Yeah.
Real quick, when you hear a guy like Andrew Luck, after you pop him, and he goes out there and he starts on, what goes through your mind?
I'm just a fan because I'm a fan of football. I'm a fan of football players. And so many times in this league, quarterbacks, with the way we protect them, aren't football players. This guy's he loves the game. He loves even the physicality of it. Yeah. And that's why he's a great quarterback.
It's funny, at Stanford, he talked about how he felt like he was into the game once he took the first hit.
Absolutely.
Like he's always talked about that.
Jimmy Johnson, Bill Parcells, Barry Switzer, none of them lasted as long as Jason Garrett as the Cowboys head coach under Jerry Jones. Think about that for a sec, guys. Garrett agreed to a 5-year, $30 million deal, but who else do the boys need to lock up? Dez Bryant? last seen not making a touchdown catch, or DeMarco Murray, who led the NFL in rushing last year, set a few Cowboys records in the process. It's time to put the Cowboys on the hook. Ryan Clark, of course, back here at the desk. Who should the Cowboys' priority be this offseason, Dez Bryant or DeMarco Murray?
It's not a percentage question.
Not a percentage question.
Look at that.
You got to go Dez Bryant. I think finding number one receivers in this league is tough. You know, you can be like the Kansas City Chiefs and not have a receiver score touchdowns for umpteen weeks.
Well, but that's because the quarterback doesn't like to throw to the
or maybe that.
Too. There's that too.
You know what I mean? But if you look at the way the Cowboys are constructed, and no, you know, Randall isn't DeMarco Murray, but when he gets in the game, he gets yards because of that offensive line, because of the fact that DeMarco Murray doesn't get touched sometimes till he's 4 or 5 yards down the field. Is he an elite running back? Is he a guy who's up near the top of the running back crew in the NFL? Yes, he's a really, really good running back, but he's not the Dez Bryant of running backs. Right. Like, this guy goes up, high points the ball better than anybody in the NFL, and that's including Calvin Johnson. I feel like you can plug different guys in that running back. I mean, how many times have we seen undrafted guys become really good running backs? DeMarco Murray's a third-round pick, but fourth and fifth-round picks become good running backs because of scheme, because of the offensive line. Finding another Dez Bryant will not happen for the Cowboys in the near future. So he's the guy you have to keep. He's the tone setter. If you watch any game where the Cowboys aren't playing well, he's the guy on the sideline with the excitement. He's able to talk to Jason Witten. He's able to go to Jason Garrett. He's able to, you know, to get in people's ear and get them pumped up about playing. He wants to win the game. I think you keep him because he's a tone setter, and he's a guy on your team who you know you can go to in critical moments as long as the rules permit.
This screams Adrian Peterson going to the Cowboys, doesn't it? Seriously, because
when you get on that cell phone with Jerry again,
here's why I say that, because DeMarco Murray had 1,845 yards rushing, average almost 5 yards per carry, 4.7, but he put the ball on the ground 5 times. And we can talk about the call, the Dez Bryant, the catch that wasn't, that the rule took away, but if DeMarco Murray does not get stripped by Julius Peppers, he's still running to Milwaukee. He's seen Laverne and Shirley and Fonzie at that standpoint because nobody was on the other side of that. And maybe we're talking about the Cowboys being the NFC Championship game, then the decision is different. So Dez Bryant is a beast. 88 catches, averaging 15 yards per catch and 16 touchdowns. People saw the X sign 16 times because that's what that guy's, especially you twice a year, playing for Washington now. I know you didn't like it at all. But this just screams Dallas saying, you know what? We got the best offensive line in football. We're not going to overpay for a guy. The report is out there, Ian Rappaport of NFL.com, 4 years, $16 million. DeMarco Murray can feel insulted all he wants. The Cowboys say, okay, we still got Tyron Smith, we got Zach Martin, we got Travis Frederick, we got that offensive line. If you go, we got Adrian Peterson or somebody else on standby, but we can't find another Dez Bryant. And those kind of guys don't grow on trees. So if we have to franchise him and wait, fine. But that guy makes us go. The offensive line does, but that guy makes everybody else better. You saw Jason Witten's numbers go up because at a certain point, you couldn't look at Dez Bryant and say, our best corner can cover him one-on-one. No. We better bracket that guy. And he still almost came up with the catch of the year in the game against the Green Bay Packers. There's no question in my mind. That's the guy you make that choice. Dez Bryant, you can find another quality running back, put it behind that offensive line, and that Dallas offense is not going to struggle. They're still going to hum along.
This is not to diminish DeMarco Murray's accomplishments.
Exactly.
Okay, but there are a number of factors working against him. A, it's the most interchangeable position in the NFL, as Ryan pointed out. I mean, look, the Hall of Fame finalist list is out there right now. Terrell Davis is on there. He's a 6th-round pick, okay? I mean, you can find backs, much like you found DeMarco Murray in the 3rd round. And you look around the league, most teams are going to 2 backs anyway. I mean, he was a workhorse type guy. How many guys have we seen get that kind of load? And I know he got the most that we've ever seen.
392 carries.
But we saw Larry Johnson got a load like that. How was he after that? You know, Priest Holmes, there were a lot of guys who can go down the list of guys who got that kind of carry load, and they weren't the same guy a year or 2 later. That's just the reality of it. The lifespan of a running back is only 3.5 seasons, okay? That's the lowest of any position in the sport. And ultimately, this is about a talent in DeMarco Murray and a transcendent talent in Dez Bryant, okay? And you don't have a lot of transcendent talents. There's a reason they're transcendent, okay? So you look at him, you look at Calvin Johnson, you look at Dez Bryant, and, you know, you can look at 2 or 3 guys in the league. He is a top 3 receiver in the National Football League right now.
Antonio Brown.
Right, Antonio Brown. Right, look,
absolutely.
You can make the case that he is the best receiver in the NFL. You can make that argument if you'd like. And that in itself makes this decision as easy as possible. you give the money to Dez, and you figure out what you want to do at running back. And if DeMarco Murray, as Freddie said, wants to be insulted, that's just the reality of the game right now.
Yes.
Running backs aren't getting big bucks anymore.
Unanimous over here. Everybody says keep Dez, but Adrian Peterson is an interesting aspect because how much do the Cowboys want to spend on the running back position?
They won't have to spend $4 million on Adrian Peterson, to be honest with you, because Adrian Peterson needs a team, and the Cowboys can say, look, this is what we're going to pay you.
Isn't he still a Minnesota Viking?
He is still a Minnesota Viking.
Minnesota Viking, but do you think he's going to play for that team next year?
But here's the thing.
Think so.
Adrian Peterson is one of the few special players at that position.
Absolutely.
He is a transcendent player at that position.
Question.
And you don't have a lot of guys. Like, look at the draft these days.
Yes.
You're not getting first-round pick running backs very much, and if you are, you're getting them towards the bottom half.
Maybe Melvin going to Wisconsin. That's the only one.
Right, but Adrian Peterson was a guy that everyone knew that guy's got to go in the top 10 because he is all-world, okay? So that's a little different discussion.
Absolutely.
No disrespect to DeMarco Murray, but he's not Adrian Peterson.
Right,
okay?
no question.
So that's a little different, too.
And
Could you imagine Adrian Peterson not getting touched every run until he's 4 yards?
Oh, my God.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
I just want Minnesota's going to bring him back. Because
this job is looking better and better
yeah.
as we speak right now. It's feeling a lot better to be up here with you guys.
I told you.
When that ball,
Twitter's going to be kind to you now.
Yeah, pay attention that you know.
Like, well, Minnesota's going to hate you now because now you just put Adrian Peterson down.
First of all,
No, they're going to hate me for taking away from you.
Agree with him.
I was just saying, if he is there, it's a scary
The
proposition.
NFC North is not going to like you today, is what's going to happen.
the Colts bounced the Broncos from the playoffs, handing Peyton Manning his 13th postseason loss of his career, the most ever. And with his 11-13 postseason record, Manning has the worst postseason winning percentage among quarterbacks with a Super Bowl ring. The absolute worst at 45.8%. How much did Sunday's loss to the Colts hurt Manning's legacy? Ryan Clark, we'll start with you.
To even be talking about this is exhausting.
Thank you.
Like, I'm exhausted, and I haven't been up very long. But this is the issue, right? Listen to what Kerry said when he introduced it. He's like, he has the worst percentage of anybody who's won a Super Bowl. Because you know why?
Right.
Not a lot of people has won Super Bowls.
Right.
And he's one of them. Right?
Right.
So that in itself sounds good to me.
Yeah.
I won a Super Bowl. And the other thing is, you know, he's lost the most games of a starting quarterback. What does that mean, guys?
He's played in a lot of games.
That means he's played in a lot of playoff games.
Right.
You know, and so I think we look at quarterbacks in a different way. You know, I talked to George about this last night. You know, guys look at it and say, okay, the win-loss percentage is that's how you look at a quarterback's legacy. That is how we judge them. Like Joe Montana is Joe Montana because of all the Super Bowls that he was able to win in San Francisco. But he played with studs, bro. Like the guys on his team, they're Hall of Famers too. You look at Peyton Manning, this one game doesn't affect his legacy. Because you know what? People are saying the same thing about him this week that they said about him after the Super Bowl last year. Right? Doesn't change it at all.
Right.
Like whether he has 8 one-and-done teams or 9. Is that really much of a difference from what we know? Listen, when Peyton Manning goes up for the Hall of Fame, and you know they all get a representative to go in the room and say, this is why Peyton Manning should be in the Hall of Fame. It's not going to take very long.
Right.
They're going to talk about all of his great stats, all of the records he's broken, how many times he has been to the playoff, the Super Bowls he had, the Super Bowl he did win, the ones he went to that he didn't win. And we're all going to be happy about it. He's going to get the jacket. He's going to be one of the greatest of all time. And picking the number 1 quarterback of all time is strictly based on opinion.
Yeah, it's subjective.
This doesn't affect his legacy at all.
Yeah. Look, this thing drives me nuts. Okay, and I know I put him in the retirement home last hour, so
Right.
I
Quickly,
get that.
I might add.
I get that.
Put him in a wheelchair and say, here's your warm
It's
milk.
okay to retire when you're 50, though.
Right.
Like, that's fine.
He's almost there.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying.
He's
It's okay.
But here's the thing. The 11-13 record drives me nuts, and I told you this yesterday, too, because to me, that's a team record, okay? Because they love to compare him to Brady, right? Brady's always the comparison. Oh, Brady's 19-8, and, you know, he's 11-13, whatever. Okay, but how many top 5 defenses did Tom Brady play with? A lot more than Peyton Manning did, okay? How many good running games did, you know, any quarterback you can mention, Montana, whomever, did they play with? All these great quarterbacks. A lot more than Peyton Manning did. Peyton Manning had Edgerrin James early in his career, and then after that, I mean, who has he really had? No one really that
Joseph
you can say.
Sedano.
Right, but those are just guys. Like Edgerrin James was a baller, okay? The rest of those guys are just guys.
I can't actually just say that about Joseph Sedano. He's an LSU guy. He was first round.
No, I said he was fine.
He ran the ball.
But you said
well.
first.
But you said first, though.
I didn't say about Joseph Sedano. I was agreeing with you until you said Joseph Sedano, and then I felt some type of way.
Tell us another one just like the other one.
My point is this, and on top of that, okay, Peyton Manning has 60 snaps a game, whatever it is. He's on the sideline for another 60 snaps a game. That defense got to do something, too. So I'm not putting all of those 13 losses on his shoulders. Are there games he lost because he threw 2, 3, 4 interceptions? Yeah, but I'm not going to say all 13 of those were his fault. And that's what drives me nuts about this legacy talk. As Ryan said, he's one of the greatest of all time. It's going to be subjective who you think is the best. To me, he's the top 3, 4, 5 quarterback of all time, and it's not even a debate as far as I'm concerned.
It's going to be part of his legacy. No matter how you try to put it there, it is. All of this. The greatness in the regular season and the slip-ups in the postseason. Your point is valid in terms of you can't just use that record and say, well, he's the reason that they were 11-13, because plenty of times they ran into the New England Patriots or they ran into Pittsburgh Steelers. They ran the San Diego Chargers that year where Sean Phillips was balling on the defensive side and Phillip Rivers was able to put that team on his back with an injured LaDainian Tomlinson. It is hard to win playoff games. Ryan Clark knows about this. It's hard to win 3 playoff games just to get to a Super Bowl if you don't have home field advantage or if you're a wild card team. Peyton Manning, you look at the record of what he's done in the regular season, and then you look at the postseason. His teams average 15 points per game in that postseason. You have to be pretty special to get into the playoffs. Not a lot of 7 and 9 teams, and he didn't run into a lot of those 7 and 9 teams. So to me, his legacy is completely cemented in my mind. But I encompass everything. Did he fall short in the playoffs? Sure. So did Brett Favre. Brett Favre and Peyton Manning have one thing in common. Well, 2 things. Great quarterbacks, and both have one Super Bowl. Eli Manning has 2. He's going to have one more in the family than Peyton Manning. But there was a lot of luck involved with Eli Manning winning that Super Bowl. Look at Tom Brady, won 3 in 4 years. He hasn't won one in 10 years, and he's driving himself crazy.
Mark Rippon has won Super Bowl. Is he better than Dan Marino, or is he as good as Peyton Manning?
He's got one of the great Super Bowl days of all time for a quarterback. He has one Super Bowl. Steve McNair might have one if the guy was able to put the ball across the goal line.
His arms were 6 inches longer.
Exactly. If he was 6'5" instead of 6'2", we're talking about an overtime against the Rams. You have to have an inordinate amount of luck. You have to have everything in your favor. And when you're Peyton Manning, I'll take my chance. The guy got the 24 playoff games. If that's how you're going to bash Peyton Manning, then you know, good luck to you. His legacy is cemented in my mind because everything has to be involved in that. But he was great enough that he got those teams to the playoffs, and he fell short. Okay, there are plenty of quarterbacks that maybe even darken the playoffs outside of having a ticket as a spectator, and we're crushing this guy because he had the audacity to only win 11 playoff games in his career?
That's because we live in the hot take-it-he-take society.
I understand it.
Wait, that's what we're doing here. What am I talking about?
You know what? You know what the thing is, though? I will say this about the playoff games. It's one thing, like George said, it's a team. You know, your team has to be good enough.
And I'm not making excuses for him.
No, I'm totally with that. But I think the problem with Peyton Manning's legacy and the reason people are hard on him is a lot like LeBron before he won one. It wasn't the fact that his teams lost. It's how he played. It's what you did. If Peyton Manning loses last Sunday and he throws for 300 yards and 4 touchdowns and the defense gives up 40 points, I think people are okay with that. You know, after the game, we say, we're talking right now, hey, Peyton did all he can do. He'll be back next year. He played a great game. But the reason you sit here and talk about, well, is he retiring? Should he retire? What's up? You know, what about his legacy? Is because in those games, he didn't play Peyton-esque. You know, if he's the Peyton Manning last year in the Super Bowl that threw 55 touchdowns and he plays like that guy and Seattle beats him, what we say after the game, you know what? Seattle was a better team. But it was Peyton didn't show up. So I think that part will be the part of his legacy that we talk about. Not necessarily the record, just the way he played in those games.
But this goes to show you how great he is. And was and has been, because we are nitpicking with him. That's what we're doing. We are absolutely nitpicking specific performances and using that as an indictment against him instead of just using the body of work, which is ridiculous.
And he's the most celebrated quarterback that has come into the National Football League because we knew about this kid in high school when he played down in New Orleans and Louisiana. Then he goes to Tennessee and people are thinking this guy's going to lead them to a couple of national championships.
And it didn't work out.
Well, they ran into Florida and Steve Spurrier. Those guys were dominant teams in the SEC when he changed that conference forever playing for Florida.
Speaking of that, I was actually on the phone with a friend and I talked about that, though. Florida's Florida, Tennessee at the time was always the big game.
Yeah, Spurrier used to troll them all the time. He used to always say,
he always used to say,
you can't spell citrus without UT.
Exactly, all the time. You know what I mean? So, it's kind of followed him throughout his career.
Yeah.
I mean, statistically, there's no doubt that Peyton Manning, one of the, if not the greatest, regular season quarterback of all time. But you guys are right. I mean, we are nitpicking. But when it comes down to it, if he had that second Super Bowl ring, we would more likely be talking about him as definitively the greatest.
People still nitpick, though.
But the LeBron example is a good one because had LeBron, let's say Ray Allen doesn't hit that shot against the San Antonio Spurs.
He has one.
We're giving LeBron more grief in that situation. Fair or unfair, that's the reality of where that type of athlete lives in. That's the world that they live in.
All right, fair enough. Peyton has had an all-time great career under his belt, but after the performance and in the latest first-round exit, the question is, should he hang it up? We talked about that earlier. Ryan will maybe get your thoughts on that, too. But,
maybe.
We'll see.
Possibly.
We want to hear what you're thinking. So vote on Twitter, reply yes or no using the hashtag #EndOfPeyton. We'll have the results later in the show. So, Ryan, before you go, because it looks like your time with us is coming.
That's it. They're kicking you out. Look at that. Carry, man.
You're getting the
What kind of host are you? Kicking the man out.
Lack of hospitality.
So should Peyton, hang it up?
Man, Peyton should play as long as they let him, as long as he wants to.
Amen.
He deserves that.
Put him in a wheelchair, man. You got to go. That's it. He's done enough, man. He doesn't need to do anything for his legacy.
Come back, Peyton. Ignore George.
What did he do to you?
Gosh,
nothing.
There's so much pain there behind those eyes.
I just
Ryan Clark, thank you so much,
3 minutes.
as always. The Bills will introduce new head coach Rex Ryan today. Ryan signed a 5-year deal worth $5 million a year. Wife of Hall of Famer Jim Kelly posted this picture on Instagram of Jim Kelly and Rex Ryan together. And it had the caption, well, this friendship is off to a good start. A cold beer at the big tree never hurts anyone. Is Rex a good hire for the Bills? He probably actually wants to hire Jim Kelly to be his quarterback, but I digress.
Yes, I'm glad Jim Kelly's still here, number one. I think I can say that for everybody. Jim Kelly, you keep up that great work and keep fighting. We're right behind you. As a New York Jets fan, I think it's a great hire for the Buffalo Bills. I still wish he was coach of the New York Jets because I honestly believe that John Idzik, as a general manager, retarded the progress of Rex Ryan and the New York Jets organization. He's a salary cap guy. He's not a football guy. And Rex Ryan was not able to be the kind of coach and have the kind of players he needed to make that work. That being said, he goes to that defense with Mario Williams and all those guys. And now that offense, for the first time, Rex Ryan will look at the offensive side of the ball, side of not having a quarterback, and saying, I got Sammy Watkins, C.J. Spiller. I got Eric Wood at center, one of the best centers in the National Football League. I got an offense. I just bring in an offensive guy and make sure it's the right one. It's a great hire for the Buffalo Bills. Now, Jim Schwartz, who had to be jettisoned as a defensive coordinator, he's going to find a job. He did a great job with that defense. He is not going to lack for employment. But this is like, to me, the ultimate kind of Buffalo guy. Hardworking, blue collar, speaks his mind. Lord knows Rex Ryan did that all the time in the media in New York for the Buffalo Bills. If Doug Marrone, who I don't think is going to have a coaching job, made that choice to do that, that's the perfect guy to replace. I think it's a great hire for the Buffalo Bills.
I think it's a great hire for the Bills. I don't know if it's the right gig for Rex. But again, to Freddie's point, the reason why it's a great hire for the Bills, in those small communities, Buffalo, Green Bay, I mean, the community is so tight-knit because it's small, and the fans have this passion and fervor for their teams that I think Rex is going to fit right in because Rex almost has this kind of college feel to him, this kind of rah-rah thing going on, and that town will embrace him. He will embrace the town. It'll be great for him. I think for the organization, it'll be great because he brings a sense of panache and stability. I think that there's a number of reasons why it makes sense for the Bills. Why it doesn't make sense for Rex, in my opinion, quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Who's your quarterback? Is it E.J. Manuel? What are you going to do now that Kyle Orton's not there? I mean, are you bringing in Mark Sanchez? I think that could be a disaster waiting to happen. I don't know if you want that if you're Rex, right? Do you want to bring Sanchez into that situation?
Depends on how much he believes in him.
Right. I guess there's that. I mean, look, they've got weapons, right? Sammy Watkins is going to be a beast in this league. I mean, he's really good now. He's going to be all world, okay? I think they can mix and match with their running backs. If Spiller comes back healthy, Fred Jackson, I think, is a workhorse type back. He do a lot of different things. I think they've got some pieces there. But the quarterback thing, man, in this league, if you don't got a quarterback, you don't have a team. Like, that's just the reality of it. You cannot consistently make the postseason in the NFL without a great quarterback. Now, I know he did it with the Jets and Sanchez, but you're talking about the number one defense in the league both years that they went to the AFC.
And the running game led with Thomas Jones, people like that.
And even the second year, they went, like that first year, they backed in. Like, they snuck in. They didn't. I remember Rex having the press conference thinking they were out. and then they had to kind of backtrack because they got in. Now, the second year they were good. They were 11 wins that year, and they were dominant. They even added LaDainian Tomlinson that year at the end of his career, who was still really more than serviceable at that time. So I think there's some pieces there, but that quarterback, that's what gets you over the hump in this league consistently. And I still wonder what they have at that position. So for Rex, I don't know if it's the right gig. Maybe he believes in E.J. Manuel. Maybe he believes Mark Sanchez can have second life there, or third life potentially now in Buffalo. Or maybe he thinks someone else. Maybe they draft someone. Who knows? But I do think that that's the one thing that I would say, I don't know if I'd like it for Rex, but for Buffalo, for the city of Buffalo, for the organization of Buffalo, that's a home run hire.
The best thing I think for Rex Ryan is the fact that he's out of the New York media canon, because that can be very relentless, feeling that you need to put on that persona at this press conference. I know he was himself, but there were times when you could look at his face and say, do I have to do this today? Because the New York media, they're doing their jobs, but they can be very relentless. He's not going to have the same kind of, I don't want to say adversarial relationship. It's going to be more collegial, because the media up there, they want to see the Buffalo Bills do well. The New York media, they don't care. It's like, we want a story. And if that's a story, good or bad, we'll take it. Buffalo's going to be, they're going to be more in his corner from a media perspective than the New York media.
Right, and he's media friendly, and I think that helped him in New York for a long time. And I agree with Freddie. Like, I think he gets a bad rap in New York, okay? I've had this argument with Cowherd here a bunch of times. Like, he's not a big Rex guy. I think Rex was the least of their problem.
Absolutely.
I think the fact that Mike Tannenbaum has admitted as much, that, you know, his tenure at the end there, they ran into some issues because they pushed the chips all in at the center of the table because they had a team that was 11-5, and it didn't work out, okay? And the contract with Sanchez didn't work out specifically. Then John Idzik, as you pointed out, comes in. He's a numbers guy. He's not a football guy. John Idzik was obviously in over his head at that point. I think Woody Johnson made the right decision there. I think Rex got a bad rap. I think Rex is a good coach. And I'll tell you this, every player that I've talked to that's ever played for Rex or that even currently plays for Rex loves that guy. That team doesn't quit, okay, for Rex Ryan. That Jets team never quit on Rex Ryan.
Absolutely.
And I don't think any team will ever quit on Rex Ryan, because he is the ultimate player's coach.
George brings up the quarterback issue, obviously, in Buffalo. Can Rex compensate for that issue?
Yeah, get a quarterback, because E.J. Manuel is not the guy. Because if he was the guy, there's no way that Uncle Rico, Kyle Orton, would have taken the job for him and almost got the Buffalo Bills to the play. He does. I'm not saying, I'm just saying. Yeah. You got to find that guy. Whether you have to find that guy in free agency, I'm with George. I don't think Mark Sanchez can be the answer unless Rex has complete confidence in him and can sell that to that team and sell that to that city. That's the only way that will work. I think if I'm Rex Ryan, I go somewhere else and find a quarterback.
Two most important hires, I guess, ideally for Rex Ryan would be the signing of the quarterback, whomever that is, and the offensive coordinator.
Right.
Rex needs a strong offensive coordinator to be able to handle all that, let Rex deal with the defense, and then go that way. The Bills have talent, okay? They can be a playoff team if they get the right person at quarterback and the right person pulling the strings for the offense.
The Jets have filled the spot left behind by Rex Ryan. We got the cover of the Daily News. Check this out. Super Bowls. Do we have that? Ah, there it is. I see the pun.
That's something the Post would have.
It's clever. Former Cardinals defensive coordinator Todd Bowles will be the new head coach, according to our Josina Anderson. And according to ESPN sources, the Jets are giving Bowles a four-year deal worth just over $4.1 million each year. That's pretty hefty right there. Is Bowles a good hire for the Jets? For your Jets?
As a Jets fan, I don't really know.
Right.
Seriously, I'm being honest here, because from what I've heard, he's from the Bill Parcells coaching tree. As far as I'm concerned, usually good is going to come out of that. And I think Woody Johnson did the right thing as an owner. You rely on people that know these things. He relied on Charlie Casserly and Ron Wolf, guys that have had success in the National Football League as executives, to help him in his search to find a new general manager and a new head coach. The Jets realized, do we want to wait for Dan Quinn, or we got a guy right here that wants this job? We can't let him out of the building. That's why Atlanta does not have Todd Bowles as head coach. But the only thing I have to go on with him, I know he did a great job as defensive coordinator. Boy, did they play hard for him for the Arizona Cardinals the 2 years he was D.C. under Bruce Arians as a head coach. I love the way he organized that defense. But the only thing I have is that as an interim head coach, he was 2-1. That's not enough. You can't use a 3-game sample like people trying on Twitter with Cardale Jones, the quarterback of Ohio State. Right. Hey, 3 games, he's a first-round pick. No way. 4th rounder at best if he decides to go to the NFL. So as a Jets fan, I've seen this before, where they get my hopes up. This is going to be our new savior. This is going to be our new Messiah. we're going back to the Super Bowl, and the next thing you know, my team is 4-12. Once again, we're having this decision. I wish Rex Ryan was still the head coach, but with Todd Bowles, I like what I've seen as defensive coordinator. But to be honest, and I hate to be on the fence here, I really don't know based on previous history with the New York Jets, where it seemed like this was going to be the guy, and it turned out to not to be the guy at the end.
Well, the reality is we don't know, and we shouldn't know, and we're just guessing here, okay? And you're right. He's only got a very small sample size as an interim head coach, though it was a successful one, the way you look at it, regardless.
Better to be 2-1
right,
than 1-2 and
right,
1-3.
Exactly. So, but what I like about Todd Bowles, and I think Bruce Arians also is like this on the offensive side with Arizona, they were aggressive, man. I mean, they came at you with the kitchen sink, okay? And look, Rex was like that on defense, too.
Absolutely.
So I think that in that sense, the defense isn't going to change that much as far as the aggressive nature. Maybe some philosophical things may change here and there. But look at what Todd Bowles did with that Arizona Cardinals defense and the injuries that they sustained. Okay, they lost Darnell Dockett. They lost Washington. They lost a number of guys in that
Campbell
defense.
for a little
right.
bit.
Mm-hmm. They lost key guys on that side of the ball and still one of the better defenses in the league. Now, again, they took chances, but I like that. If Todd Bowles continues to be aggressive as a head coach, because I think there are way too many coaches that get way too conservative once they become the head coach, all right? It's why now I get it, because here's the thing. If you're aggressive as a head coach and then it goes wrong,
right,
then you got to sit there and answer for that. And you have to be comfortable in your own skin, and you have to be comfortable within your organization to have those kind of, brass you-know-whats to kind of make those type of aggressive decisions in game. But I think if more coaches did that, I think fans would respect them more. I think players certainly would respect them more. I think one of the big problems that John Fox had in Denver, and the word was that John Elway didn't think he was aggressive enough. He was too conservative. So I think Todd Bowles needs to stay true to his form. He was aggressive as the defensive coordinator with the Arizona Cardinals and needs to stay aggressive as the head coach of the Jets.
The one hire he made, bringing in Chan Gailey as the offense coordinator. Chan Gailey was not a good head coach. Yeah. I think it's a really smart move because people don't realize this about Geno Smith. His numbers did improve last year in the second year as a Jets quarterback. He was the only quarterback to have
Jets fan talking.
No, hold on. I'm bringing facts to the table here.
He's got a lot of misery that he knows.
That's right.
So he can
That's
talk
a
about
fact, too.
Yeah.
Geno Smith was the only quarterback last year that had one game with a perfect passer rating, and having the last game of the season against the Miami Dolphins. So now if you bring in a Chan Gailey, who was really good when he was the Pittsburgh Steelers offense coordinator, when he had Slash and Cordell Stewart, he got in an AFC Championship game. It didn't work out as a head coach, but that could be the right guy to maybe bring out what Geno Smith believes about himself, that he can be that kind of quarterback. Now if you have a guy like that can dial up plays where it seemed like at times they didn't know what to do with Geno Smith. I thought Marty Morningweg kind of short-circuited his development by doing different things all the time, and Geno Smith was never comfortable.
I do think you need an experienced offensive coordinator for a young quarterback. Look at what North Turner did for Teddy Bridgewater this year in Minnesota. Yep. So I do think that's a really smart move by them.
So is Geno the answer at quarterback for the Jets here?
I think he'll get a better chance. I don't think he's the answer right now, but I think for the first time since he's been with the New York Jets, he'll feel like he has a fighting chance to be a better quarterback because I think he's going to be taught properly a lot better with Chan Gailey as an offensive coordinator than he was with Marty Morningweg.
And by the way, just to go back on I know we had the picture of Rex with the pizza, and I asked why would you put frosting on pizza? I've been told on Twitter, Susan in Vegas hit me up on Twitter, on my Twitter. Thank you, Susan. And she said that she read that it was ricotta and spinach on that
So
pizza.
it's not frosting.
So it's not frosting. Frosting would be disgusting on pizza.
Yeah. There's the picture. Yeah, that still looks kind of disgusting, actually.
Not a big fan of ricotta?
I don't do ricotta cheese. I do like lasagna.
Ricotta and cheese.
This is a very weird conversation
elitist
for me.
that you are.
I am a cheese elitist, actually. Going back to the Bills real quickly, they did hire offensive coordinator Greg Roman from the 49ers. You mentioned that was one of the key things. What they have to do is figure out the offensive coordinator. Does Greg Roman, that 49ers offense, from what you've seen, is that going to change things in Buffalo?
Well, it makes me feel that maybe E.J. Manuel will be the quarterback because they must feel that E.J. Manuel possesses some of the similar skill sets that Colin Kaepernick possesses. So that would be the one thing that would make me guess that would be why they hired him, because they see E.J. and they think that he can be Kaepernick. And look, Kaepernick took his team to a Super Bowl and a couple championship games. So I think that if Rex feels confident that that's the vision for E.J. Manuel, then that's the guy to bring in.
And stay out of his way. Let him deal with the offense. You deal with the defense.
Earlier, we asked if Peyton Manning should retire. Here are the Twitter results. 50.7% of you guys say yes.
Twitter loves me.
Hang up those cleats. 49.3% say no. Again, that was hashtag end of Peyton. So it seems like the public is saying that he should indeed hang them up. That means they're in agreement with George Sedano.
I demand a recount.
Disagreeing with you, Freddie.
I demand a recount.
Did our Twitter fans get it right?
Go ahead. Are you doing the Macho Man Savage?
Hulk Hogan.
Hulk Hogan. Okay, that's right. Hulk Hogan. I'm sorry. Yeah.
So our Twitter fans got it right.
Yeah, man. Look, he has nothing left to prove, and I'm not a body language guy. I actually hate that type of discussion, but look, the way he answered that question, man, and I know it was after a loss. Like, that to me spoke volumes, okay? That's not the Peyton Manning I expected to hear. I was floored when he had that reaction that he didn't know if he was coming back.
You know what? I was floored when I heard it, but I looked at it from the standpoint of, okay, this was a devastating loss. No one expects to go into a game expecting that you're not going to win. I think he went out there expecting, you know what, I know I got this quad injury, but I feel more than enough, we're team enough that we're going to find a way to win this game. So it was a shock to his system, not only losing, but losing that way, where he left a lot on the table. That team left a lot on the table, and I think that's where that emotion came from.
Again, he's one of the greatest quarterbacks ever. He has nothing left to prove, okay? Anyone who, look, people are already predisposed to their beliefs, okay? And Cowherd loves to say this too. He says, people don't want information, they want affirmation, okay?
Yes.
And if you believe that Peyton Manning is a choker and he doesn't win enough big games or whatever, you're going to believe that regardless of what happens,
Absolutely.
okay? That's just the way this thing works. So I don't think he has anything to prove. As Ryan said, he's going to get the Hall of Fame jacket. He's going to be a top 3, 4, 5 quarterback of all time. And you know what? At 39, you just don't get healthy. It doesn't. Those things keep adding up. If it's not the quad, it's going to be the ankle or the knee or the shoulder or whatever. That's the way this thing works at this age. You don't get better with age.
If he hangs it up, who should the Broncos have a quarterback? Brock Osweiler?
No, they got to find
Is it Brock
time. Look, even if they bring him back, and if they do bring him back, I think they need to bring in a veteran backup quarterback. Okay, no more Brock Osweilers and Curtis Painters and those guys. You know, whomever the coach is needs to bring in a veteran, or John Elway in this case too, needs to bring in a veteran backup, because you know what? If he's dinged up during the regular season, let him sit a game or two. And you have a veteran in there, not some guy who's wet behind the ears, and maybe you can still win some games.
If he decides not to come back, I hope it's because he feels he can't do it anymore, because nothing is sadder than seeing athletes at the end of their careers. I mean, I still have a vivid memory in my mind. One of my favorite ball players of all time, Willie Mays, falling between first and second base in the World Series he played for the Mets. No one should see Emmitt Smith in the Arizona Cardinals jersey or Michael Jordan in the Washington Wizards jersey. That's not how I want to remember Peyton Manning. So if he feels that he can't do it and that's his final game, that's fine. But if he feels he still can do it and he's going to be healthy enough, you know what? What have you got to lose as far as I'm concerned? Because your legacy is not going to be affected by coming back and not coming back.
There have been those whispers that what if another team picks up Peyton Manning? You buy into that? There was the Texans that came across.
I mean,
the Cardinals.
I always thought the Cardinals was going to be the ideal place for him because of the weather situation year round and the dome and whatnot. But you know what? He chose Denver, and I don't blame him. Denver's a great organization too. But yeah, I think he should just go. He has nothing left to prove.
Come back, Peyton.
Come back, Peyton. And speaking of coming back, Stephen A. Smith, Skip Bayless, and Kerry Champion all back tomorrow. Freddie, Coleman, George Sedano.
Thank you, Twitter.
Thank you guys for watching.
Come back to the NFL, Peyton.